Blog Talk Radio.
Apologize. Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. Welcome to this Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Central Time here in the Panhandle of Florida. Just want to remind everybody that coming up next Tuesday, I'll have a very special guest on our other program, the Women of Golf, and I'll be joined by, of course, LPGA professional Cindy Miller every Tuesday on blogtalkradio.com. So make sure that you join us on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But tonight we're gearing up for, of course, another round of Coach's Corner, and I've got two great guests on my panel this week. And before I bring them out here, let me just remind everybody, of course, that we're live every Thursday evening here on blogtalkradio.com /Golf Talk Live at 6 p.m. Central Time, and the program runs 2 hours through to 8 p.m. So I appreciate you sticking around each and every week, and thank you to all the listeners worldwide for tuning in. If you want to call in anytime during the live broadcast and speak with any of the guests or speak with myself, of course, you can do so by calling area code 646-716-4667. Or if you want to be a guest on the show at any time, you can certainly email me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. If you want to get updates for the show on social media, you can follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog, or you can follow me on Twitter, and I appreciate all the new followers on Twitter, and my handle is Ted and Buck CEO, CEO being in caps. And don't forget to check out the Golf Talk Live website at www.golftalkliveblog.com. As I said, we've got another great round of Coach's Corner this week. It's going to start us off, and then a little bit later in the broadcast, I'm going to be joined by Robert Brown, from the founder of the Veritas World Junior Championship. We're going to talk a little bit about the tournament coming up this summer. But first, let me bring on a returning champ on my show here. She's an LPGA head teaching professional, actually, at the Landings Club in the beautiful Savannah, Georgia. And she's also the author of a great book that is up on my website that if you want to get your hot little hands on, and that is Stick to Sports, Let's Play Golf, and you can get a copy of that right from my website as well as hers. We'll give you a little bit more information about that later in the broadcast. In addition to her, a newcomer to the program, I've never had her on before, but Kate Tempesta, she's going to be joining us. She's the founder and partner and president of Fun, as she likes to put it. She's a member of the LPGA Teachers and Club Pros, and she's also the director of the junior golf program at Montauk Downs, and also the president of Kate Tempesta at Urban Golf Academy. Ladies, welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Hi, Ted. Thanks for having us, Ted.
No problem. I hope I got all of that out right. I was trying to get through that part as quick as possible so we could get to having you guys on. So if I said anything incorrect, I apologize. We'll correct that throughout the show. Also, just let me remind everyone, too, I know as I posted tonight's show, we were going to be joined by Brendon Elliott from the Golf Academy of America. Unfortunately, he had to back out last minute due to some things that he was working on. So sorry to miss Brendon tonight, but that's okay. I'm glad to be here with two great lady professionals, and we're going to have some fun in Coach's Corner tonight. Let me just, one more thing before we start, ladies, just to remind everybody a little bit what the Coach's Corner concept is. Every Thursday night, of course, is your opportunity to either call into the program or you can email your questions, as many of you do each week, to the program, and allow the opportunity to pick the brains of some of the best coaches and teaching professionals in the business. Each week I'll have a different panel, of course, and we'll cover a new topic each week, plus help some of you weekend warriors out there as well. So make sure you call live in during the broadcast, or you can email your questions to questions.golftalklive@gmail.com, and the number again to call is 646-716-4667. Okay, ladies, I decided normally I let one of my listeners pick the topic, but since you guys were coming on, I wanted to pick the topic for tonight, and it's really something that I've talked about a little bit on the program here in recent weeks. It's really about the future of the game, and I want to set this up before I pose the general questions here. But with so many things competing for our attention out there through social media and video games and things like that, especially the younger kids and even young adults, early teens, it seems to be getting harder and harder to entice this next generation to sort of embrace golf. And one of the first questions, there's two questions that I have here, and the first one, and Nicole, I'm going to start with you, is how do we introduce golf to the next generation and make it look fun? We know it's fun being in the business, but how do we make it look fun to this next generation? Nicole, if you want to start us off.
Sure, be happy to, and I think, Kate's going to weigh in very heavily as well, but I think we're both very passionate about getting youngsters involved in the game at a much earlier age than what has been traditionally, began at like age 8. That seems to be the magic number. So I think getting them started earlier is important. We're looking at a lot of other sports, skiing, martial arts, swimming, tennis, basketball, where kids are starting at a younger age. So, I just did a presentation, and I was trying to figure out, why has that age been 8? Is it that the adults haven't been trained? Is it that they're not comfortable at that age? Is it that for some reason there's not enough ROI, where they see more time and energy invested in another part of the golf business that hasn't been beneficial, to start with the younger ages? So whatever the reason is, we definitely need to change on that and get the kids started earlier. And heard a great quote by one of our district directors in the PGA, and he said, change is permanent and growth is optional. So at this point, I think the people who want to expand their business, but also, get younger children interested in the game, not just, for the sport, but also for life lessons, early age, and then you also, get the parents and the families involved. So I'm thinking, early age is a lot better. I started when I was 4. I'm not sure when Kate started, but, getting started early, it's good. I don't see the kids having a problem starting early because we put the equipment out there and they love it. They just gravitate towards it. So, I think the adults have to kind of come back and revisit how it's going to work.
Yeah, great point, and obviously, there's a reason, and I'm going to talk about it in just a second. I'm going to let Kate chime in first before I sort of give my take on some things. But Kate, if you want to jump in here as well and just give your thoughts on how we can, really get the next generation involved in golf.
Sure, no problem. I mean, I think Nicole hit a lot of great points, and I would simply add to that children of this age that we're talking about, and let's define it, it's really 6 and under. I mean, Nicole and I start programs at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And the bread and butter of my program here in New York City really is 3 and up. I know that Nicole has ventured into some younger years, but being an early childhood educator for many years prior to my teaching golf and getting into the business, it was really understanding it takes a very, very special skill set to work with this age. And I think, golf is a difficult sport. There's a lot of moving parts, no pun intended, and there's a lot of dynamic. I mean, I think it's a fascinating sport to teach every age. I think becomes even more fascinating to teach young children because they're such, they're such sponges of information. They're going through such drastically huge developmental milestones that, we talk about the physical, but we have to talk about, Nicole's probably heard me talk about this ad nauseum, but I'm a big believer in it, is that, what's going on socially, what's going on emotionally, what's going on cognitively, of course, what's going on physically, and how do we, as golf coaches, tune into that? Sometimes it's just not about what they're able to do gross motor-wise. Sometimes it's about what they're able to do cognitively or what friend they're able to really work together with, and that's a big deal. We've had, and I think that I think if the industry can wrap their mind and arms around that concept, we really could make some headway in getting these kids in, what Mike Hebron calls the romantic stage. This is the romantic stage. This is the time to get children to fall in love with anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and well said, ladies. Certainly both had some great points. I think that one of the reasons why, I'm very passionate about targeting not just, with junior golf and in the traditional sense, as you both have talked about, but getting them at a much younger age. I think that once you sort of plant that seed, if you will, the majority, certainly not everybody, but the majority of them will sort of carry. It's like anything when when you're a youngster and somebody introduces you to something or shows you even and I don't want to say a toy or something, but something that sort of catches your eye. More often than not, as you develop, if it's sort of kept in your circle for a period of time, more often than not you will gravitate to that. If you're never introduced to the sport or introduced to the game, then you're going to have a harder time. And I think this is where society has sort of, especially the golf community, has missed the boat. There's a lot of great people such as yourselves out there that are doing it, but I think the industry has sort of fallen behind, and now it's jumping in. But for a long time there, it really was not aggressively marketing. Not only that, but also to the other area, and this is one of the reasons why I started the other program, Women of Golf, is I think that there's still a lot of work to do in the women's market that I think will help in the junior market as well. So the other question that I want to sort of attach to this first one is, once we get them in there, how do we keep them? Because as I said, there's a lot of information, whether it be through the internet, vying for their attention. Once we get in there, what do we do in the industry to sort of get them to stick around for more than just a few months or even a year or so? What do we do to keep them there? Nicole?
I think, like in school, you have different levels. I think children like watching themselves progress, and they progress at different speeds and different rates, and coaches have to be cognizant of that. But there is so much out there now, Ted, that I think the time is right for younger children to get into golf, and for golf professionals and mentors to start grasping this, because, companies like Snag and The Littlest Golfer, Birdie Ball, Quick Golf, they're all starting to provide some great opportunities. A lot of them are getting into the schools too, which is a good start. I think other countries like Canada, they're doing a great job getting golf mixed into the schools. So having a development-type program, I think, is important. And we started something this year called Climb the Ladder, and it's based on, martial arts belts. And we actually started at age 2, so a 2 to 3-year-old could start it on a very basic level. I had one start in a couple days ago. And as they achieve each level, they get a little piece of tape. It's honestly just a piece of electrical tape. We were trying to figure out, we want to do hats or wristbands or this or that, and it turned out that a different color electrical tape was very cost-effective, but it goes up their kickstand on their golf bag. And if they don't have a kickstand, we make a little dowel rod with a little, bag tag attachment, and we just let them climb the ladder. And the kids are looking forward to coming to the next lessons and the visits. And I think if you provide them progression levels, that is certainly, a really good start. And programs to feed them into now, such as LPGA, USGA Girls Golf. We have levels in our program in Knoxville. PGA Junior League. I mean, those programs are just starting to get going. So levels and progress, I think, are very important.
Do you think that the industry as a whole, whether it be from the PGA side or even certainly the LPGA, I know the LPGA for sure, but do you think that maybe and I know there's a lot of great guys out there that are working in some of these programs, but do you think that there's things that the PGA of America and professionals themselves can be doing more to encourage, especially young boys? I don't think it's an issue getting the young girls involved, but I think getting the young boys, if they don't see themselves, playing out there with Tiger Woods, they don't seem to gravitate as easily as the young girls do. And I'm just wondering, is there something that we can be doing in the industry to make it look more? I mean, and again, I want to back up here for a second. We know that golf can be fun, but I think sometimes the message that is being sent out there in the industry It certainly is, as Kate, I think you indicated, it is certainly a hard game. There's a lot of hard work that has to go into to get to a certain level. But I think we need to go back to the basics and just allow people just to have fun at the sport. And I think, Nicole and Kate, what you're doing here is fantastic. So, Kate, let me ask you this. What can we be doing differently in the industry that we're not doing now to try and get more of the younger golfers involved?
Well, I think certainly. I mean, I've only been in the golf industry since 2007, and certainly in the last 7 years, I've seen a significant shift in the PGA and both the LPGA and PGA embracing, the fact that we really do need to do something different with the juniors, and that this isn't just about like handing our third assistants with the junior programs. I think that we could do a much better job of it. Don't get me wrong, but I do feel like it's shifting a little bit, and I do think it's a matter of some people sitting down in a room and really, as Nicole has said, developing some levels. But I think we all need to get on board, and I think a lot of it is educating parents, educating other instructors. I have coaches that have worked with me for the past several years that, they didn't know that they could work so well with juniors. And after, shadowing and working together with some of our other coaches and really getting in the philosophy of what we do and playful learning and joyful learning, they get it, and they're able to flip that switch from, okay, it's got to be about gripping, stance, and posture to, okay, you know what? What's more important is playful, joyful, successful connection to the kids, engagement, and creating that kind of learning environment. So I think not only educating other professionals and the industry embracing, it's, educating parents. You said something about making golf fun. I think the PGA has done an amazing thing with the PGA Sports Academy. When I was young, I didn't want to play golf. I wanted to kick and run and throw and jump, and I wanted to be active, and I thought golf was boring. And so, kudos to the PGA for coming up with the Sports Academy. And so, that becomes educating parents. I mean, I see all the time, we have PGA Sports Academy stations in all of our classes in Central Park, and, the parents will sometimes come up and say, well, what does that have to do with golf? Well, it has a lot to do with golf. Number one, you're building athletes, and number two, this is a language that all children speak. They want to move, they want to run, they want to jump, and so why wouldn't we be doing that? We're building athletes, we're building golfers, and we're tapping into something that is astronomically important and developmentally appropriate.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and it is true. I mean, you are really building athletes. Golf has become a very athletic sport. Years ago, in the days of Nicklaus and Palmer and that, golfers were not perceived as athletes. But now with many of the younger guns, if you will, that have come up in particularly the last decade or even 2 decades, really, have become much more athletic. And of course, and I'm not trying to use him as a sole example because, I mean, there have been others that have come up along the way. But Tiger certainly really moved that needle quite a bit in the golf industry. I mean, he came out, he was very athletic, very fit, and, proved that it is an important component to playing good golf, is being in great shape, and it gives you a competitive advantage. You not only have a physical advantage, but you also have a mental advantage. You're much sharper when you're in physically in good shape, and that you just feel better overall. It's the endorphins get going, and you just generally feel better. But the reason why I wanted to sort of start off the program like that is I'd read out in one of the shows, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and I'd read an article, and I've read a few of them since then, where it talks about really that there's been a decline in the rounds of golf that have been played as a whole. There's approximately 25 to upwards of 30 million golfers still here in the United States, and of those golfers, about 80% of those golfers are playing on public courses, and the average $45 to $55 per round. So it's really not. The studies are showing that it's really not a monetary, even though we've gone through this recession. It's really not a monetary issue as much as it is people just don't have the amount of time that they once did. People are either working additional jobs or so the golf industry really needs to do some sort of an aggressive approach to getting people, coming to golf as opposed to just, doing all these other things. In other words, we're competing with time. So, that being the case, is the golf industry as a whole focusing enough of its efforts in that area, or is it still sort of focus. And the reason why I say that is I was, of course, Nicole, I know you were there as well, but down at the PGA show this year, and I saw a lot of technology and a lot of great things that were fun and looked kind of cool and all that. But I just saw a lot of the same type of direction where it's more about, making an elite golfer or, that sort of thing. And I'm just wondering, are we getting too technically, overloaded, and do we need to ratchet it back or what do we need to do to sort of make changes to get more people engaged back in golf again? Nicole, I'll start back with you.
Sure, I got a couple ideas. One, I wanted to follow up on Kate's idea that's going to launch into this next follow-up. But, she mentioned a lot the word fun, and she is the president of fun, and especially kids' fun. Because I think a lot, adults have forgotten. I think many of them have forgotten how to have fun as a kid, because they're seeing they're seeing golf and life through the eyes of an adult, and it's got to be, make sure you keep your head down and pay attention. And I'm sorry, the child's not paying attention. I'm like, well, they're not supposed to be paying total attention. They're learning about life. They're learning about things that you already know about. So their attention is supposed to be in different places, and we're going to work the lesson in and around that, especially in the private session where you can walk around and do a little bit differently. So we need to figure out what it is that's fun for kids. So asking them what they would like to do, building, lessons around them, figuring out which sessions work is important. So, as the game develops, I'm going to put this out there. I'm waiting for a backer, but anyone who wants to follow me on this idea will be welcome to. I think that golf courses should be adjusted for time. I think 18 holes should be built in 3 6-hole segments. And that way you have people that come out and play 6 holes, play 12 holes, or play the traditional 18. And not only will it allow people to come in smaller loops, but, from a business standpoint, you're going to increase your food and beverage because you're coming back to the golf course twice. You increase exposure to the golf shop or to places where you can market programs. You can do a lot of different things. So that's one of my ideas, and I'm hoping, that'll change. Golf is very traditional, and there are some wonderful traditions of the game. But they need to morph a little to also account for the change in time. So I'd love to see 16-inch holes on a green. If a person doesn't want to go for them and wants to go for the traditional hole, then that's cool. But if somebody else is starting out, wants to go, that's like saying, well, I know you're starting out in skiing, but let's just skip the bunny hill and go straight to the moguls. I'll walk you through it. And it's like, really? So there's a lot of things coming up, like tee it forward. I'm a huge proponent of tee it forward, playing where you get a chance to have a good time up there. So I tell people, look, you can either play for expectation or you can play for fun. And I've moved up. I love it. When I get a chance, it's fun. So, what's the definition of a game? It's about entertainment. It's about having a good time. So I think you got to keep the fun in it, and especially ask the kids what would be fun for them. Yeah.
Exactly, and working with, over the years, I've played with a lot of women as well as men, but and I've said this many times, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I've actually enjoyed many rounds playing with the ladies as opposed to the men, only because, and it's not an issue of having less pressure. I mean, most of the people I've played with, my friends and so forth, I've beaten them quite easily anyway, so it wasn't an issue of worrying about my ego, but they just seemed to have more fun. They went out there to enjoy the game. They weren't as competitive, and I certainly enjoyed some competition along the way, but at the same time, I was out there to enjoy the day. You're out there for a few hours, and the sun's shining, and the birds are chirping and whatnot, and I want to enjoy the day. And if you're out there in a competitive heat all the time, that's great for some, but you also have to have some fun along the way. And I think you're right, Nicole, when you said that. I think that's missing a little bit in today. I want to start into another question because I think, Nicole, you actually really led into this question very well. I'm going to let I'm going to let Kate start off with it, but I'm going to read it out because it was based on something that you had said. This email came in from Sandra. She's from Buffalo, New York, and she writes into the program. She says, my husband and I play golf pretty regularly and enjoy it quite a bit. We have 2 children. Our son is 7 and our daughter is 5. They have been to the range and played a few times on a par 3 course. We usually ask them to come with us, and it's usually not the other way around. So in other words, they're asking the kids to come along. we would like our kids to play more but don't want to push them. And their question is, or her question is, do you have any suggestions on how we can get them more involved? So it's kind of along the same theme. But, here's a wife and husband team that want to have their kids involved, but they don't want to feel like they're pressuring or pushing them into a sport that they may or may not be interested in. So how does a parent approach that, from a standpoint of getting them involved? And Kate, I'll let you go first.
Well, I think the key word there is fun, and sometimes quite honestly, it's just not the parent that delivers that. There's too many buttons attached there. But I think as far as getting them out on the golf course, you have to find their point of entry. For a 7 and a 5-year-old, it might be just riding in the golf cart the first night. Hey, come out with mom and dad. We're going to ride in a really cool golf cart. The next night it might be, playing a putting game and then doing a driving competition. But like tee to green right away, not so much. Maybe it's tee dad up under the tree and have little Johnny 50 yards from the hole and try to beat dad. And meanwhile, dad has a trick shot from under the tree and around the corner. I think it's just it's playful situations. And one of the things we do at Montauk Downs is we facilitate parents and children out on the golf course. And how do they do that? It's not tee to green with that age. It's just not until they're ready for it. And it really does become finding their point of entry. And sometimes the golf cart is what it's all about. There's a million other examples of that, but it's really, not projecting your 35, 40, 45-year-old experiences on this human being that's been on the earth for 5 years. You have to tap back into what a 5-year-old developmentally presents. And, raking a bunker could be like the hit of the night. And that's cool because there's so many teachable moments. And there's everywhere. They're everywhere. Teachable moments with golf, and that's the greatest thing about this sport is, there's so much sort of physical downtime that there's so many other opportunities to teach the children and get them invested. But it has to be through their point of entry, not yours, not the parents, not the adults.
Would you, and let me just add to this here real quickly, Kate, and then we'll let Nicole chime in, of course. Would it be smart for them to maybe go and speak to a local professional in their area that specializes in teaching youngsters that age and maybe, connecting the kids with them? Because they're obviously going to have more experience on how to get them engaged and get them interested more as opposed to, the parents obviously don't want to push them in it. Would that maybe be something that would be a good suggestion for Sandra?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, from my vantage point, absolutely. In U.S. Kids Golf, if you go on their website, they have a wonderful certification program now that a lot of PGA and LPGA professionals are going through. It's based on a lot of learning through games that Don Law and U.S. Kids Golf have put together. And so if you go on uskidsgolf.com, you can find a local pro in your area that's been certified. But certainly I would encourage them to get involved in group learning with the right coach, the right instructor. Kids like to be with their peers. They learn well by being with their peers. And so I think the social aspect is really big.
Yeah, and that's true because, when I think back and I played a lot of different sports, baseball and, football and things like that, and I can remember as a youngster, first getting introduced to the game, especially baseball. I can think of a great example. They always made it fun first, and a lot of times the little kids out there wouldn't even care where the ball went. They'd be playing in the sand and the diamond and, building castles and doing all kinds of things. But it was just exposing them to that sort of, effort. And then as time went on and as they developed more, then, of course, they got into more focusing onto what the task was at hand. But initially it was really about having fun and just letting them go out there and be a kid. And I think we need to do more of that in today's society. Nicole, I'm going to let you chime in here as well on this. Sandra up in New York is looking for some suggestions to get her son and daughter involved. Any other thoughts that you might have you'd like to put in?
Yeah, I just had about 10 things flash through my head, so I'll see how many I can remember. But,
all right, go ahead.
Following up on Kate's idea, just finding things that are very unique to hook them into the game. She mentioned bunker raking. Our 2 to 3-year-olds love that. They love the ball washer. We have to stop at every ball washer because they absolutely love cleaning their golf ball and drying it off. And, it's about a lot of the little things. I am blown away this year by how many returning students at our Easter camp in our after-school program come up and they stick out their hand and they wait for that golfer's handshake. I'm like, wow, this is really starting to take. And so it's a lot of the little cool things. But, I think even getting the kids attracted into the game with something like snag and birdie ball, those are things you can even do in the backyard because they're very portable. You can play them anywhere, and you can come up with these cool challenges. And then taking it, to a course and, even bringing the birdie ball out to the golf course and go, we're going to go to the real big golf course today. And let's bring this equipment because they're comfortable with it and transitioning them out there and looking for places that can do like Parks and Rec maybe, Nicholas Learning Leagues and places that are going to start hosting some family events. And I was just speaking at the Northeast New York section meeting and, we were discussing starting programs at that young age. And I know, Kate and myself and Brendon are reaching out and starting with the younger kids. And if we start instilling these visiting grandchildren with some of the golf ideas and they go back to their clubs and membership, what do they have in place to continue what started? Right. I guess I'll leave the last little story before you go on. But I had a 22-month-old student about 3-4 weeks ago. And we just wanted to give him a little time, and he actually hung in there for a half hour. He didn't say one word the whole lesson. We did a lot of different activities, 2 or 3 minutes here, 4 or 5 minutes there. We did some putting. We called it TikTok putting, and we did some big hits and raked the bunker. And he didn't say one word the whole lesson. He just kind of followed me around and did some things, and we moved on if he got a little antsy. So that night, his grandmother emailed me and said, "Thank you so much. I know he didn't say one word to you, but all through the whole day, he randomly burst out with things like, golf with Coach Cole, TikTok. He'd sit in his high chair making golf swings. And then she said that night when they sat down to read, she read him a little book, a kid's book, and he points to his grandfather's nightside table, and he goes, "Read that." And so she pulled over Golf Digest, and he wanted to read every single page in that because he noticed the golf club. And she said, "Thank you from the of grandmother's heart," and it was just really cool, just what they soak it up. They are like sponges, and so I think, getting them involved in some of those fun games would be a good start.
Yeah, I agree, and that's really what I think. Here's the reason why, I wanted to, really talk about this tonight. Because it bothers me a little bit what I was starting to say earlier about some of the reports that I've seen and articles I've seen coming out about golf in general. I think there's 2 areas. Number one, for some reason, whatever that reason is, whether it is partially economical and also a time factor, the average person out there is sort of falling by the wayside as far as the golf is concerned. So much so that there's a lot of people in the golf industry at very high levels that are worried right now. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to put a scare out there, but I think that the industry certainly is doing a lot of great things, but I think they really need to understand, because as that older generation is moving on and passes on, we want to make sure that this game continues to keep growing and manifesting itself. And I worry sometimes that certain elements of the industry are focusing too much on the technology side of it, which is great and it's fun to see all this stuff, and not about, developing, new golfers and getting them interested and just going back to having that fun. So there's a lot of challenges involved, and I know you ladies are doing a great job, but I think Kate, you pointed out earlier that the industry as a whole, you'd like to see them do even more, and I agree with that. Let me move on here real quick. I want to go on to another question here from Teresa up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and she's kind of has a little different scenario here. She said, "I would love to play golf, but with 3 little ones, it makes it very hard. I have 2 questions for the panel. The first one is, are there any, she doesn't give the ages, but any golf programs that are targeted at kids under 12? And then if not, are there facilities that offer some sort of a daycare type facility so I can play?" So she's got really 2 problems here. She would love her kids to be involved more, and I know that we talked a little bit about some of the programs, but I know that there are some facilities out there that do offer some facility to allow people to go out and play while their kids are being entertained. So, Nicole, I'm going to start, or actually, Kate, I'm sorry, I'm going to start back with you. What are some great areas or programs that target? Let's talk about the 12 and unders.
Well, I certainly can't speak for the rest of the world, but I mean, I can talk about some successes that we've had out at Montauk Downs, where I am in the summer. We've put together a golf and tennis camp, and so it's I say golf and tennis, but it's really a whole child approach to learning, and so it's exactly 5 hours. It gives moms and dads an opportunity to go out and play 18 holes or play 9 holes and then go and have lunch and do their thing for a little bit. But it really taps into the whole child and gets the kids engaged in learning and discovering golf at the same time the parents are able to go out and do their own thing. I think ultimately it just really boils down to how much the golf course owner or head pro wants to invest in this particular age group. I think it would be silly for any golf course to not have 12 and under. Nicole said it earlier. 8 tends to be the magic number. A lot of golf courses start 8 and up, and of course we know, Nicole and Brendon and I know that. Wow, there's a lot of money out there that you're leaving, and there's a lot of future golfers that you're not taking care of. So I think it boils down to really the golf course as the director of instruction, really putting together the programming to make sure that that's in place. But certainly, golf and tennis for 5 hours. We play golf for an hour and a half in the morning. We have snacks. We do face painting. We blow bubbles. We do movement. We play music. Kids go swimming. We have lunch, and then they do the flip flop in the afternoon. And it's again, it's sort of whole child learning, and it gives the parents 5 hours to go out and sort of do their thing. So, many people look at that like babysitting, but it's not babysitting. We got 8, 9, 10-year-olds in there that are having a great time, and they're learning and they're discovering the game of golf. So, it's ultimately up to the sport.
Right, and as we all know, golf in so many ways mimics life, and that's why it's such a great sport. There's a lot of great sports out there and games that we enjoy as youngsters, but golf is uniquely different because it's really one of the only sports out there that it really challenges you as an independent. A lot of team sports out there, and certainly there's some team aspect to golf too, in the higher level, but essentially it's you against the elements, and so it mimics life in so many ways, and I think that's why it's so important to get at an early age. And as I said, some of the older players out there, some of the amateurs particularly, they've played for many years, they're not as eager to really want to make a lot of change, so they're sort of set in their ways, but there's such a huge untapped market, I think, still out there, and I think getting more schools involved, particularly getting golf into the schools, I really think the golf industry needs to do a much broader way of lobbying, and I hate to use that term in a political term, but lobbying a lot of the schools and getting them to incorporate golf into their programs more, and not necessarily at a collegiate level, but at a much younger level as well. Nicole, let me sort of do the flip side here on the second question, and I want to ask you from this standpoint. She also asked about facilities that offer, and she used the term daycare assistance so that she can play. So here's a mother that certainly wants to get her kids involved, but if at the very case she doesn't want to drop them off at a traditional daycare, she still wants them to have that environment. So, do the courses need to offer some programs while mom goes out with maybe some lady friends and maybe plays 9 holes? Do the courses need to offer some sort of a program that encourages the kids to get interested in golf, but it still allows mom to go out and play with her friends?
Oh, I think that would be a home run. In fact, we just had some guests in town. Arthur Little and Jan Leeming had a course up north, and that has been something that they've been a huge proponent of. How else are we going to get adults out playing if they can't, have a safe place for their children to learn? Again, it'd be kind of cool if, there was a small program for youngsters, and then they were in the class while the parents could go out and play. So I think that, that in essence would be better than just a child care service. It's child care during golf. So, if
right.
the child gets dropped off at a Montessori school or somewhere they're age 2 or 3, you would hope that the child's not just going to sit there and get babysat. You want them to learn something. So there's no difference in having a golf program where they're actually incorporating golf to help with those lessons. So, and I don't think that's for everyone. Like Kate said, it takes a very special person to be able to get down on the knees and actually play with the kids. But I don't expect everyone to do that, but I would hope that they would find somebody that they could put in there on their team as far as, helping them out. So one of my suggestions, the summertime, if You need somebody like a kindergarten teacher who might be off for the summer and loves golf, straight out maybe lessons, and have that kindergarten teacher come in and maybe help a little bit with programming. So I will tell you there are some fun things on the way. A lot of little projects going on right now, so hang tight for things. But, as far as, that with the child care, that would be a really good thing. I think that would be a good move to have that done. And I'm actually from Massachusetts originally, so I'm not as familiar up with Cambridge, but I know there's a great program by Charlie Lanzetta down in the southeast, I think closer to Fall River. So, getting the kids involved in programs for 12 and under like First Tee, LPGA, USGA Girls Golf, PGA Sports Academy. Those are some really great venues to get them started. Also, a couple companies called Bite Size Golf and TGA Premier, so those might be some that you could look into as well. And, of course, after school, hopefully we'll have Snag or Birdie Ball or something in there as well.
Yeah, and this is something, too, that I want to get, that, you had asked the question, you guys had asked me the question before we come on air. Kate, I think it was you that actually had asked me this, if I was going to be doing more conversations on the program here about junior golf and not what we classify traditionally junior golf. But I definitely want to do that because I really think it's important. I think that the golf industry really needs to do all it can to start targeting some of these youngsters and getting them interested in golf. And Nicole, what you had said, too, is getting even somebody outside of the golf industry to come in during the summer to help out. I think that a lot of the clubs still are sort of have gone the traditional route, the director of instruction, a lot of times, looking for their sort of run-of-the-mill lessons and maybe doesn't have an effective program there. And I think that by bringing in somebody that specializes in some of these youngsters, really what they're doing is they're grooming them for future lessons, because as they get the kids coming in and getting them interested in hanging around the golf course as opposed to hanging out somewhere else where they don't need to be, these PGA and LPGA professionals are really going to have the pick of the crop some years down the road when these kids really want to get serious about playing. So it really sort of behooves these courses to be very aggressive in their approach and bring somebody in, especially, you've got teachers off, as you said, for the summer. Why not bring them in and get them involved and say, hey, we want to start, raising a crop of new, potential golfers here, but we don't, we can't afford to spend our time or don't have the skill set to do it ourselves. I think that would be a fantastic idea, and I think that's something that really needs to be focused on as well in the golf industry. Let me jump here for just one quick second before we continue on with another question, ladies. I just want to remind everybody, if you're tuning in here, we're certainly live on Golf Talk Live here on blogtalkradio.com. And if you want to join in on the conversation, we would love to have you join in. And the number is area code 646-716-4667. Or you can email me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to bring you in on the conversation through an email. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/golftalkliveblog. Certainly would appreciate you visiting the site and throwing a few likes my way. And thank you for all the people that have joined me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. I appreciate that always. And don't forget to visit the website, golftalkliveblog.com, and check out some great books, including Nicole's book, and we'll let her talk a little bit more about that in the closing moments of our time. But ladies, I want to get off on a little bit different topic here for a moment, if I can. We have some other email questions that have come in that are not related to the general theme that we've talked to, but I want to get them in here as well. Jason from Birmingham, Alabama wrote in, and very, very simple. He says, I play weekly, and he's around about a 20 handicap, and he said, my goal is very simple. I want to break 80. Can you help? And he's got about 3 or 4 question marks. This is sort of a standard question that we've heard many, many times. Kate, I know that you're maybe a little bit newer to golf and that, but for some of the adults out there that want to improve, what are some things that they can be doing or should be doing to lower their scores a little bit that maybe sometimes they don't think about?
Well, I think we've all seen this as golf professionals, that oftentimes people practice a little bit too much off of the golf course. And so, hitting a bucket of balls or making the same putt over and over again. And so I think from a practice standpoint, I think it becomes a matter of really getting out into the venue that you're actually playing, and literally playing more golf on the golf course. I think the other big thing for me, on a personal level, but also from a coaching standpoint, is tuning into the other things, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it, what Vision 54 is all about. It's the essential playing skills beyond the technical aspects. And so, what is your emotional resiliency? What's your, the 8 essential playing skills that are way beyond what TrackMan can read. And I'm not like, I'm not putting a bad name on TrackMan, but again, what are the 8 essential playing skills? I'm a huge believer in teaching to the whole person, and I think that somebody trying to break 80, I think, needs to practice to the whole person and practice as the whole person, I guess, if that makes sense. So those would be my 2 suggestions.
Right, and I agree with that. And go ahead if you want to expand on that. We would love to have you share that.
I think I would just finish by saying that if people out there are not aware of what Lynn Marriott and Tia Nilsson are doing out in Arizona with a lot of top tour players, I would check out Vision 54 and any of their books. They do some phenomenal books, and if you're a coach listening to this program, I can't recommend their Coaching for the Future program. Coaching for the Future 3-day program. I mean, it's phenomenal stuff what they're doing. I mean, they're huge game changers, and we talk about teaching to the whole child, Nicole and I, and these people are teaching to the whole human being. They're teaching. Their tagline is coaching the human being that happens to be the golfer. And I think that for the average weekend warrior, we neglect those parts of who we are, and I think they're really big as far as making some progress out there. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I've always said this, and I as I said earlier, being down at the PGA show, there was some great stuff down there. It's interesting in that, but I really feel, in my opinion, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that may not agree, and I'm all for the technical side of it as well. But it's, as I've said many, many times on this program, it's using the equipment as an example. I don't care what driver you have on the market. You're not going to get 10, 20, or 30 extra yards with that driver if you don't know how to use it properly. And I don't care, who you are or what coach you go to. If the individual doesn't understand how to use the equipment properly, they're not going to get that additional distance. And unfortunately, the industry for a long time, and Kate, as you had mentioned with TrackMan, I'm not knocking TrackMan either. I think it's a great product, and I think it has a purpose. But again, it's not teaching to the whole person. And I think that there's a place. Tom Patry, who's a 30-year veteran of the PGA, was on here about a month ago, and he made a really good point. He and I were talking, and I said to him, technology is great, but technology is only great while the power is on. When the power goes off, you're left with just the coach. And if the coach doesn't understand, how to work without that equipment, then it doesn't really amount to anything if that equipment's not available. So, there's a lot of aspects that have to go into helping somebody. And Nicole, I want you to expand a little bit more, if you would, on how we can help Jason here in Birmingham.
Sure. I very much love Kate's ideas with Vision 54. My background is in sports psychology. I have a master's in that. So I guess one of my first concepts is that when people have a set and cut dry number that they try to break as they get closer to it, it becomes really difficult because they start guarding their score. And they come into the home stretch going, gosh, if I only can make one bogey and one par, and then, they stop playing as they've been playing so wonderfully, and they start guarding their score. So I like to work with goal windows. I like to say somewhere between 78 and 82 would be a cool score. So as they get comfortable and not have to worry about one number, they relax, and then a lot of times the lower number comes. So I would set more of a goal window first. And then I would also, I like Kate's idea of practicing differently, practicing better. I'm a big proponent in transfer practice, but first of all, I think he needs to figure out where is he going to save the strokes. I love doing assessments. We're starting to do a lot more stat tracking, and I know there's some great programs out there. A lot of them, Shot by Shot, is very good. I use one called My Golf Game Plan by Eyeline Golf. I love it. It's so simple. And it really shows people where they actually are losing strokes. So we see, the average score, the average putts, the number of 3 putts, the number of errors, scrambling. There's only like about 7 or 8 points that I really look at, and it's really easy. And it shows people like, holy cow, I'm really, I'm actually doing okay hitting the driver in the fairway, but wow, my scrambling percentage is like 15%. So that shows me. So I think before he, it's hard to say what he needs to work on because I don't know what his game's about, but he needs to figure out, I think, where he is in order to discover where he needs to go.
Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. Kate, if you want to as well add maybe or talk a little bit about, I know you've raised some great points here, but one of the other things, let's talk about the practicing end of it, some things that he could be doing differently in his practice sessions specific. Let's be more specific about it, and not just in the physical end of it, but also some a different mental approach, if you will, to playing and breaking 80, as opposed to just thinking about the number. What are some other things that he can mentally be doing as well as physically be doing to make things a little bit different?
Well, I think it's emulating certain situations out there. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of like having a competition with a friend, or having a competition within your own self. But it's certainly a big part of it is emulating the situations that you're gonna find. Again, not to talk about Vision 54 too much, but they have a wonderful games application that you can get on your iPhone for $4.99, and to get out there and you can pick the category that you want to work on today. You can work on trajectory, you can work on creative shots, you can work on balance and tempo, and it's sort of a whole sensory, whole person approach. So I think literally getting that, I think would help his practice enormously. But I think it's about emulating, and this is exactly what they do. It's emulating certain situations. They get the adrenaline up, and then they ask you to perform a shot. They get the adrenaline down and really low, and they ask you to perform a shot. And these are all situations that we find out on the golf course in a competitive and even in a non-competitive situation, whether it be with yourself or your weekend friends. I think ultimately it is about emulating those situations out on the golf course.
Right, and I think too also from a mental standpoint, I think as Nicole had mentioned as well, taking that number and having a range as opposed to a specific number alleviates some of the anxiety. I think from a mental standpoint, I think a lot of people, and I can think back, playing with some of my friends back home over the years, and I can remember as soon as we put a few dollars on close to the pin on a par 3 or something, I can think of one specifically. I'm not going to name names on air, but I can remember him choking all the time. But as soon as that money equation was taken away, he was fine, and he just was not able to alleviate that. So I think that's a big thing. And I've had a few of the mental coaches on here as well on the program. We've talked about that at some point. And I think there's a lot of things, as you said, Kate, too, is about teaching the whole person and not just, the golf swing, and not just about making great contact and that sort of thing. There's a whole other area of things, and I mean, that's probably a whole program in itself that we can talk about that really people need to focus on. And I think, but the number one thing that I truly believe, we've talked about this early in the program, foremost, you have to go out and have fun. If you're not going out and having fun on the golf course, and you're so wrapped up about breaking 80 or 90 or whatever the case, or 100 even, then you're not going to enjoy it, and that anxiety level is just going to continue to creep up, and you're just not going to have a great time. And I think that, unfortunately, with some of what I talked about earlier a few moments ago about some of the promises, if you will, in the industry with equipment and things like that, it just adds to the frustration. I think first and foremost, as amateur golfers, they need to go out and have a good time, just enjoy the game, and mix it up a little bit when they're practicing, and get in touch with some great teacher professionals that are out there. There's all kinds of them in your area. Just you can search online, or you can go to your local course. But I just think that there's so many areas that that need to be worked on, that too many people are just getting caught up in the traditional, like you said, hitting a bucket of balls here and there, and it's just not improving. And I think out of frustration, that's what's causing people not to head. Yes?
Do you mind if I jump in and just follow up on what Kate said real quickly?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, real quickly, I was going to mention that, I was just certified in Spirit of Golf with Tim Creamer, and I absolutely love what that program is doing, and it is quickly, becoming a real big and mainstream on mini tours, and he's working his way up into the tour. But we're finding out that the emotions actually precede the mental game. So the emotions kick in, and then the thoughts kick in because of how you feel, and then the physical part comes about. So, working on the emotional level, that's a big part of Vision 54 too. Figuring out positive emotions and how to manage emotions will actually change the mental game. So I think there's a step before the mental game that is now starting to be researched, and that would be helpful for Jason. There's a great book out there called Skills and Drills. It's by Tim Creamer. It's on his website, My Spirit of Golf. And basically adding in a positive emotion, something you can buy into and believe and look forward to before your shot, that would kind of change the mental game up a bit.
Yeah, and
Ted, we're doing that with the. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I just want to say something really important, and we're sitting here, I know that we've changed the topic a little bit, and I don't want to bring it back to junior golf, but that is extraordinarily effective with juniors as well. To get even a 3 or 4-year-old to, I have them say the words, I can chip, I can swing, I can putt. But if these 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, you can mold that into there. And I think, the way that we can have an impact as coaches and to create that positive self-talk and create those positive emotions around the game of golf, around their performance, it's huge. It's astronomical. I think it's just a great concept that not just a 40-year-old can learn, but a 4-year-old can learn.
Right, and I actually had a guest on, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago now, Greg Liberto, who talks about that all the time, and that's something that he focuses on is the emotional side of people, and that's something too. I think that a lot of and I don't want to when I'm saying these things about the equipment or talking about specific things that people are doing. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great teaching professionals out there and coaches and that. But I just wonder sometimes as an industry if we're focusing too much on the technical side and not about as much maybe as we should be on the emotional side, because the stats don't lie. For the last 20 years, the stats have come out. Handicaps have not gone down, if at all, and so people have become frustrated. So I think that we need to tap into other areas besides coming out with the latest and greatest equipment. We need to tap into the other areas of the golfer psyche, if you will, and find out why people are not improving as much as they should be. Because it certainly really is not the instructor. There's a lot of great people out there teaching this great game of golf, but for some reason it's still not. And since we are going to be working with juniors so much, we really need to nail this down so that we're not sort of repeating that pattern. And it sounds like you guys have got some great and others that you're working with, and I think this is something that as an industry in whole we need to stay focused with and really fine-tune it, if you will. I want to follow up with one last question here, and it kind of sort of comes back to the junior program a little bit, and then I'm going to give both of you ladies, before we close out this session, an opportunity just to talk a little bit about what you're doing and how people can get a hold of you and that sort of thing. This last question is by a gentleman from South Carolina, not too far from you, Nicole. Name is Rob, and here's his dilemma. He says, my son and I play pretty regularly. He's turning 15 and enjoys playing golf a lot. He has expressed an interest in playing at a higher level, either college or even possibly the tour one day. I think he is a good player, but not sure if he has the skill necessary to go on. Can you make some recommendations on how I should proceed? So in other words, in a sense, what he's asking is, he recognizes his son's a pretty good player, but not sure if he has it within him to go to a higher level. So he doesn't want to, figuratively speaking, burst the bubble, but at the same time, he wants to be encouraging. So, Nicole, I'm going to start with you first, if you don't mind. Rob in South Carolina here has a bit of a dilemma with his teenage son. He wants to certainly encourage him, but he doesn't want to, have him shoot for the stars if it's not realistic. So how should he handle something like that?
Well, I think there are different stars to shoot for. There are many different levels he can enjoy golf, and by setting a standard, it might stifle his ability to what he's going to believe in himself. So getting the Ping College Golf Guide will show him the different levels of play that he could achieve. There's D1, D2, D3, NAIA. He could see what the coaches and what they're saying, what the players are shooting. So there are different levels of ability. So I think that's really important. He can, become, again, a great amateur player, and then, see if he has what it takes to get on tour. It's a long road. It takes a lot of good work, a lot of belief. But I think, starting out with that to show him that what the levels are would be important, and having very good positive reinforcement from his dad would be really important. So the 15-year-old having a good support system, and finding a coach who's going to mold him as a team, somebody who's going to work well with. And, I'm not going to say shop around for a coach, but I would interview different people and see what their style is, sit down just listen to maybe 10 minutes of a lesson and see what he's comfortable with. He needs somebody to help guide him in the area.
Right, and that's so true. And you should shop around a little bit. I know that's not a great term to use, but I agree with, and we've talked about that here in the program many times as well. I think that when you want to, it's just like, when I think back in school, there were certain teachers that I connected very well with, and there were others that I just, I was literally falling asleep in their class. So, when you're about to make an investment, because golf is certainly at times cannot be a cheap sport. You want to make sure that you're investing that money wisely. And if your son or daughter, whether it be daughter, wants to pursue golf at a different level, you want to make sure that you're connecting them with somebody that they can identify with and that they feel comfortable working with. And the other thing too that they need to keep in mind is Rob's son may not have the ability to be a great tour player someday, but he may have skills within him to maybe be a good teacher. And if that's the case, that may be an area. I mean, not everybody has to get out and play on the tour. There's a lot of other avenues and a lot of great things to do in the golf industry besides playing golf at a high level like that. He might end up being a great teacher or coach that can help somebody else down the road. So sometimes, you have to really sort of understand what your direction is. And I think that's something else, too, that he needs to talk to somebody that's knowledgeable about finding what skills he really does have and what areas he should be focusing on. Kate, do you want to throw some thoughts in here as well?
Well, I agree with what Nicole said. I think I would just add in, and I think one of the things that we're forgetting is that, it's okay to fail. And so if, not everybody is even going to make D1 or any of that. But, I think it's a matter of his father, how does he support his son and understand that it's his son's process. It's not the father's process. And, the great thing about golf is that it does teach life lessons. It does teach perseverance. It does teach emotional resilience. It teaches all of those things. And whether he's successful, I think he's going to be successful no matter what he does, really, with his journey in golf. But that it's ultimately honoring the process. And, how do you support somebody through that process? How are you empathetic when you need to be empathetic and not, how did you feel you played today rather than, you didn't. Yeah, there's proper questions and proper ways to support your junior golfer. Even this sounds like an older junior golfer, but how are you listening to them? How are you understanding that it's their process and supporting that? So I think that we need to remember that part of it as well.
So, Kate,
Very
the first
well
question
said.
about what did you shoot?
Yeah. Well, you get in the car, hey, what did you shoot today? Rather than, what was how did you experience today? Like, tell me what your experience was. Tell me about that. Otherwise you're looking at it through your lens, and it's not your lens. It's your son's lens. So let him talk.
Right, and you know what? Obviously his son has certainly expressed an interest in playing, but a lot of times that, kids at that age too can be, their decision making can kind of be a little fickle. 1 minute they want to, be a race car driver, the next minute they want to be out on the PGA Tour, the next minute they want to be something else. So, before, I can remember being that age as well, and I played a lot of different sports. Some I was very good at, others I was okay at. But, I really didn't know what direction I wanted to go in that age. So, what he might be expressing right now may not be what he feels like, when he gets to be 16, 17 years old. His focus may change. So, before you leap in and start getting every golf guru and coach out there, signed up, you want to make sure that that's something that he's really thinking about seriously. And if that's the case, then you can, sort of help guide him in. I want to wrap this up very quickly, if I can. And then, as I said, as I promised, I'll give you both an opportunity since we have a few extra minutes. If you were going to advise, and I'm going to dial this back down to the really young levels here, if you wanted to advise, let's say you're out in a social setting, both of you, and you wanted to sort of encourage a couple that has some youngsters to get involved in golf, what would be something that you would sort of start the conversation with, and how would you encourage them and sort of talk about some of the benefits of them getting into a program such as the programs, Nicole and Kate, that you both offer? And Nicole, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you go first again.
Sure. I would look for some resources that you can bring into the house, such as Brendon's coloring book, my Stick to Sports book. I have another product that's coming out hopefully soon that will be fun just to entice kids and keep them interested. Looking around in the area to see who might start programs that young, there are going to be more coming out. I think this is something that's catching on. Doing a little research and keeping things fun and keeping golf items around and ideas around the house just to keep that on their mind. So I think that would be a really good start.
Very well said. Cool. And Kate?
I'm going to say that they should get on a plane and go to Savannah, Georgia, and take class with Nicole Weller. That's really ultimately what I'm going to say.
Are you going to come teach it with me?
Yes, I will, absolutely. I mean, Nicole hit every point. I couldn't say it better. And, the other thing I would add in is talking about all of the other aspects that golf presents. And so we're talking about, young children where a lot of parents, certainly in my area, my geographic area, they're putting together custom classes for their preschool classes because they understand that in addition to, yes, this is a great game. I mean, I have a ton of parents that don't even play golf, and they put their children in my program simply because they know that it's just a good experience. And if we turn out a golfer, then great. But, I think I would educate them a little bit more about not only what sport can do and the opportunities it presents, but, the impact that these group classes can have on developmental milestones, socially, emotionally, and all that other stuff. But ultimately, I get on a plane and go to Savannah. That's what I do.
Yeah, the weather's good, and that's for sure, and I agree. Ladies, I want to thank you for coming on tonight, and
thank you.
I hope that we have shared and shed a little bit of light on some of the topics that we talked about. It's such a huge topic, really, that you're never going to cover it in an hour, but I know that you guys are both doing some great work, and I know that the industry is better for it, and I want to wish you both much continued success in both of your venues and avenues that you're pursuing. And Nicole, when you have some more things to launch, by all means, you always have an open invitation to come back here. But I'm going to give you an opportunity, and if you don't mind, Nicole, I'm going to let Kate go first. Kate, if you want to just let the listeners know how they can get a hold of you and some of the things that you're currently working on that you would like to bring to their attention.
Sure. Well, they can follow me on Twitter, although I have to admit I sort of fall off the Twitter world every once in a while, but I'm KT Urban Golf. You can find me on my website, which is www.ktuga.com. And basically what we're doing is we're rocking the golf world here in New York City. We're turning city parks, we're turning schools, we're turning church basements into golf courses, and we're getting kids involved and engaged. And while we're creating different levels for them to progress to, our bread and butter is really introducing golf and letting children ages 7 and under discover the game. And so we have a licensed curriculum that's licensed in Canada. One of our golf professionals is there. He's turned his program from 6 kids to 300 kids, 6 and under.
Wow.
And we offer some consulting services for other professionals on how to start an early childhood golf program, and that's it. But basically, we're looking to bring golf into environments that otherwise wouldn't have it, and with ages that wouldn't be exposed to it. So, and ultimately,
Excellent.
we're offering empowering children through the game of golf. That's what we do.
And excellent work up in the Big Apple. And for those of you tuning into the program, I definitely want you to visit Kate's website and learn more about some of the great things that she's doing up there in New York. Nicole, I'm going to let you close out this segment of the program and just let the listeners know of all the wonderful, great things that you're doing out there in Savannah, Georgia.
Definitely. Well, actually, I work at a facility that's for members and their guests, but I'm always happy to reach out to people who are in need of some ideas via email, or we have some people that come watch and, watch shadow us while we're teaching a little bit, which is great. But you can reach me on Twitter. It's Stick, STICK, 2, Sports, SPORTS. That's the name of my children's book. And Facebook would also be Stick to Sports, but it's spelled with T-O, so Stick and then T-O Sports. And feel free to email me, nicole.weller@landingsclub.com. That's always a good email to reach me, and happy to get back in touch with you and provide some ideas. So. And
Very
actually
good.
my
Ladies,
website too, NicoleWeller.com. That'd be a great place to check out some info. And I have resources on the back page there too, plus some children's games that they can print out under the book tab. There's some fun things they could print out and play on a rainy day.
Now, I know you said that you've got something coming up, and I know you don't want to let that out quite yet until you're ready, but let me know when that's in full force, and if you want to come back and present that to my audience here, you know you're more than welcome to, Nicole.
Definitely, thank you. I've got my hands in about 4 big pies right now, so I'm so excited. It's really good.
Well, you do a fantastic job, and I hear nothing but great things in the Nicole Weller camp, and I've heard lots of good things in the Ty Weller camp. Unfortunately, I haven't had the honor of interviewing him, and I'm sorry, Ty, but I'm throwing you under the bus tonight. I hope that you're listening to the program, and Nicole gave me a great idea earlier on about having a couples conversation on here, so I think that's about the only way I'm going to get you out here. So, but anyways, Ty, you're welcome to come on the show at any time, and I would love to have both you and Nicole. That would be a great conversation, I'm sure. But ladies, I want to thank you very much for coming on tonight in Coach's Corner, and Kate, when you're feeling a little bit more up to it, Matt, I would love to have you come back on and talk in greater length about some of the things that you're doing up in New York.
Sure thing, Ted. Thanks so much.
Thank
Not
you.
a problem. Have a great evening, ladies, and thank you for joining us here on Golf Talk Live.
Thanks. Thanks, Ted. Bye, Kate.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. That was, of course, my guest panelist, Nicole Weller, head teaching professional up at the Landings Club in Savannah, Georgia, and Kate Tempesta, who is the founder and partner and president of FUN, also a member of the LPGA and teachers and club professionals, and also the president of Kate Tempesta Urban Golf Academy up in New York. If you want more information, as they both indicated, you can visit Nicole's website at www.nicoleweller.com, and Kate's website is www.ktuga.com. Make sure that you check them out and see some of the great things that they're both doing. As I hang on here for just a second, just a couple things I'm going to quickly read out here while I wait for my special guest tonight, Robert Brown from the Veritas World Junior Championship is going to be calling in here momentarily, and we're going to be talking with Robert here for the remainder of the program. But just to remind you, as I said at the beginning of the program, I also have a Tuesday morning program at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time called The Women of Golf, and that, of course, is geared for the ladies, and I'm joined every week. Feel blessed, actually, to be joined every week by none other than LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and her and I. So you can tune into that program at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time by just going to blogtalkradio.com/ and type in Women of Golf, or just go to their main website and just type up in the search key Women of Golf, and you'll get right to the program. And that's every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on blogtalkradio.com. I want to kind of do things a little bit of reverse here, just because I've still got a moment or two before Robert calls into the program. If you want to find out a little bit more about Nicole's book, Stick to Sports, Let's Play Golf, you can certainly get more information from her website. But if you happen to be surfing on my website, golftalkliveblog.com, it's under the book section there, and there's a direct link. You can actually purchase it directly through that link. It'll take you back to her website, and you can buy it either on up to 5 copies. You can visit her website, NicoleWeller.com, or if you're looking for bulk wholesale order, 6 or more, you can contact Nicole at WellerSportsVentures.com, or you can simply call at area code 912-355-8073. Nicole is certainly a hard-working young lady here in the golf world, and we're certainly grateful to have her on the panel here tonight. Let me just talk a little bit while Robert, I see, is in queue here, so I'm just going to read out something very quickly, a little bit about Robert. Robert Brown, of course, is the founder of Veritas World Junior, a graduate of San Diego State University, 25 years in logistics and marketing experience in the energy industry. He's a former director of Petroleum of the Petroleum Club of Los Angeles golf tournaments, coach, manager at youth sports before his 2 sons began playing junior golf in the summer of 2007. Has attended over 160 junior golf tournaments, including U.S. Junior Amateur Qualifying, the Callaway Junior World, and the Optimus and U.S. Kids World Golf Championship. And as I said, he's the founder of Veritas World Junior, and he's joining us right now on Golf Talk Live. Robert, good evening, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. How are you?
Hey, hi, Ted. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Robert, I've already done a brief intro, and we're ready to go. And I thought that the best way to start this off, Robert, is just to, plain and simple, tell us how you came up with the name Veritas.
Wow. Well, first of all, I practically fell out of my chair with that intro, so thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
The idea with Veritas is when I went on this mission to create this event, I really wanted to come up with something special with the name. I think any entrepreneur wants that for their business. And quite innocently, one night, started looking through the Greek alphabet, and lo and behold, getting to the very end of it, after writing down a bunch of possibilities, came across Veritas. And when I saw that name, I practically did fall out of my chair because of how meaningful the name potentially was to the event. And Veritas goes back to Roman and Greek mythology, and Veritas was the Roman goddess of truth and mother of virtue. So inside the sport of golf, and particularly junior golf, where you don't have the capability of having officials at every hole, and oftentimes there's volunteers that aren't necessarily experienced, it's really incumbent upon the junior golfers to understand those principles and honor them for the sake of the game and progress. So anyway, that was basically the name, and it's been very interesting because the other thing that's happened is that people all speak about the name, and it's probably the only alternative where you're trying to.
Right. Actually, I'm not sure, Robert. Nope, it looks like we lost Robert here. I know we had a little bit of a technical problem there, but Robert, if you can call back into the program here, we'll just give a moment or two. But Robert, of course, is involved with Veritas World Junior. It's a championship that's being held out in California, and he's going to talk a little bit more about that as soon as he contacts back into the show, and I apologize for that. I'm not sure if it sounds like he might have been on the move when he was calling, so let me just wait for him to come back on and that. But in the meantime, don't forget to tune in every Thursday night here on blogtalkradio.com, and you can do so by going to blogtalkradio.com and then typing in Golf Talk Live. You can get directly on the link, and don't forget the shows are live from 6 p.m. Central to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time every Thursday night. And also, if you're not able to tune into the live broadcast, it's auto-recorded, so you can visit the link at www.blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and you can listen at your leisure at any time through that link. But we'll just give another moment here, Robert. I'm not sure if he's having some technical difficulties on his end or not, but we'll wait for him to contact back in. And don't forget, you can call into the program at any point at area code 646-716-4667, or you can email me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com if you want to be a guest, if you're in the golf business, if you're a teach professional or coach, or maybe you have a great product that you want to share. We're certainly more than willing to bring you on the program here. You can certainly email me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And as we wait here for Robert, and again, I apologize. I must be having some problems on his end here, so I'll just continue to talk on here while I wait for Robert to come back online. Don't forget also, too, that the Coach's Corner segment that we have, as you listened to earlier in the program, is on at the beginning of each of the Golf Talk Live programs for roughly about an hour, and it's a panel discussion, as you heard this evening, with Nicole and Kate. And tonight I wanted to, just because of the virtue of what they do, and also because Robert was coming on and going to be talking about junior golf, I wanted to try and sift through the questions and find some that were, for the most part, related to getting some of the youngsters out there. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but obviously golf is important to me, as it is to many of you out there, and I want to I want to keep the momentum going and getting more people out there playing this great game. And for whatever reason, it needs to, focus, I think, more on the junior level. And some great people like Nicole and Kate and Brendon, of course, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us tonight, but we'll have him on here at another time, are working very hard, as are many others out in the golf industry, to really tap into this junior market. And I think one of the other areas, as I touched on very briefly, and I'm very diligently working on behind the scenes here, is women. There's still so much work left to do here and getting more women engaged and involved in this sport, and I'm very passionate about that for a lot of reasons. I think that really it's not just going to be the junior end of things that is going to help bring golf back up to its earlier numbers, but I think it's getting more women involved from a corporate level, involved in golf. I think it's a great way for as more and more women get out in the corporate world, it's a great business tool for them to use, as many have used it in the past, for networking, and it's not just a social tool, but it's also a networking tool as well for many business leaders, and has been done like that for years. And I think as more and more women get involved in the executive level particularly, they're going to want to use that as a valuable tool, and many of them currently are doing that now. And not sure, as I said, what's happening here, but let me just double check and see if we can get Robert back here. As I said, I think he's having some technical problems on his end with his phone. Oh, it looks like he's back. Good evening and welcome back, Robert. How are you?
Boy, Ted, I'm sorry. You're exactly right. You nailed it. I don't know what happened with the phone, but I had to reboot the whole thing. So anyway, hopefully we got a fresh start here.
Yeah, not a problem. What I wanted to really do, Robert, was to obviously give you an opportunity to talk about the Veritas championship that you've got coming up in the summer here. So let's talk about that, how that sort of came about, and what you've got planned, and then I've just got a couple of questions I want to ask you about that. So how did the tournament coming up, and I believe it's July 19th to 26th, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about that and how it came about, and really what the driving force behind this tournament is about.
Well, essentially, I think you started out by mentioning that my children play golf. We have two boys, and actually my daughter's now playing golf. And in all the tournaments we went to, which are all wonderful, there's a wide variety of junior golf opportunities. Today, for any parent that's thinking about junior golf, they have the greatest selection of opportunities out there to participate. But what I found was that the greatest opportunity for us was to be able to compete internationally against other players. But the reality of an international tournament means that it's got to be something special to bring players from around the world to one location at one particular point in time. And so there were very few of those effectively, and the ones that were there were incredibly difficult to get into. And so it seemed to me that if you could create a larger event you had the potential of attracting, again, more players internationally. And if you became larger, then it would create more opportunities for more players to participate. And essentially what's happening in junior golf at the high end of the world, and when I say high end, I speak of tournaments like the United States Junior Amateur, for example. Mm-hmm. Those tournaments are kind of fixed in size, and yet the junior golf world is growing larger and larger. And so what's happening is everything is based upon expertise, and so my thinking was that it should be based more on competency. And competency not change over time, whereas expertise changes over time with the number of people participating and the number of hours of time and equipment, et cetera, to participate in that sport. So if we could focus more on a competency measure and say to a child that, look, you can participate in golf and reach a level of competency that doesn't require a massive investment, homeschooling, the kind of things that it takes practically for a child to participate in the existing events. If we could focus more on that competency, will become larger and more open, create opportunities for kids. That's what was interesting to me. So, and the essence of the event is, sure, it's a golf competition, but really it's also about bringing these kids from around the world, from all these different cultures, to compete together. And since it's a multi-day event, naturally over, when they first meet, the first few hours, they're all shy. But by the end of the first day or going into the second day, the icebreakers have all been done, and these kids really start to engage with each other and start to develop relationships. So that's what we're really trying to do, is create long-term relationships among these kids so that they can enhance their economic and social well-being for the rest of their lives. Right.
And that's a fantastic really way to put that. And we talked about earlier on the program with my previous guests on the panel, who are very, very big into helping getting youngsters into the game. We talked about, as an example, some things about different ways of getting them into the game. But really, first and foremost, we want them to have fun. We want to build this game. There's a lot of stats and things out there right now that talk about the decline of golf in certain areas, and some may not see it and others do, but the facts don't lie. The number of rounds of golf have declined by 4.5% to 5% every year since 2006, and it's not all just due to the economy. There's other factors involved. A timing thing. So, there's really two areas that golf needs to develop. One, it has to develop at the junior level, and also it needs to develop more in women's golf. And so, that's two areas that we want to work at. But I really want to focus on the junior golf because obviously that's what you're focusing on. But what is one of the things that you hope comes out of this annual? Obviously, it's going to be an annual event. What is one of the things that you really hope to come out of this event?
Well, this is like a diamond. It's like it has many facets to it. Primarily, the idea is to create an event in a location. Southern California is key because at the junior golf level, any golf tournament is logistically challenged. And in Southern California, we have perfect weather conditions in the summer, so we've basically taken the weather off the table. Just a little trivia item here: the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles in 1962. And except for April, had never been rained out in all those years.
Wow.
It's 50 years now. So, and the number of times they've been rained out in April are five or less than 10 or something. So we have the opportunity to run the event. So people that are spending a great deal of time and effort and money to get to Southern California to compete in an event are going to get to compete in that event. So that's key. Second of all, we have lots of infrastructure in Southern California, not just golf courses, but other things that people find interesting, all the way from the Venice Beach to Hollywood Boulevard to the Getty Museum, Rodeo Drive, Huntington Beach surfing, you name it. Southern California has it. And so people can come and enjoy those other attributes. There's also the important part where Southern California is, by most measure, Junior Golf Scoreboard ranks different states on all different levels, and California comes out number one in terms of concentration of number of golfers, of good junior golfers. So you have a strong base existing right there. And finally, Southern California is the gateway to the rest of the world. We're close to the Pacific Basin, where the golf is growing at measures of 30 to 35%. You've got South America, Mexico, and then Canada in the north, and the rest of the U.S. You've got the desert states, the hot states, Utah, Arizona, and Nevada, that in the summertime they would love to come to Southern California, get out of the heat, to come play golf in 70-degree weather. So we have those key things. So with that, now you have the opportunity to make something really large happen. In a junior golf event, what we're following the Dan Van Horn U.S. Kids model. Dan was very revolutionary when he suddenly went to individual age divisions for a junior golf tournament, which the parents love because it really breaks it down to a more fair competition. You got a 9-year-old playing a 9-year-old. And so once you break those divisions down, now you can start to really become a large event, because on a golf course in Southern California in the July timeframe, you can get easily 200 players around the golf course. So in Veritas, we have divisions from 6 to 18. For boys and girls, there's a total of 26 divisions. So we have a theoretical capacity of 5,000 players in a world where the next largest event is something less than 2,000 by any measure. Now, we can grow, because if there's demand out there, and I believe there is when you actually break the math down, we can grow by doing what nature does. You divide and multiply. So we can divide those divisions by 6-month brackets, and now by dividing in 2, we can create twice as much capacity. So if we're measuring competency, and 5 years from now, we've doubled the number of players that are shooting even par, let's say, or whatever competency level you want to decide, then suddenly now you can manage that additional demand that you have. And I believe the bigger the event, the more of a draw it becomes, because being the biggest event in the world is its own draw. But the other thing that's critical about this is that the size of something matters when you're trying to create value, and this is a value creation model. So nowadays, sponsors and entities that want to be involved in properties, this would be considered a property in the vernacular of that world, they want to know what your numbers are. So if you're a 150 golf or 150 athlete tournament, which would be, let's say, one golf course, the normal golf tournament, that's not large enough to get a sponsor's attention. But if you can claim you're the largest, and then you can grow to very large numbers, and you also are a global entity, well, now you can start to attract a lot of attention. And by doing so, we can take that value and then put it back into the junior golf system through a nonprofit structure, and we can create more opportunities for particularly kids that don't have that opportunity to play golf now because they're maybe financially limited in some way. So anyway, it's a multifaceted concept. It goes across a broad area, but it's really a value creation model about giving kids something to shoot for, right? Giving something to aspire to get into, and making it real, giving them a real opportunity to actually play in the event if they reach that level of competency.
Do you think, Robert, that the future of golf is really, and I don't want to sound like an alarmist when I say this, but do you think the future of golf is going to depend on events such as yours? Well,
boy, that's a can of worms when you talk about the future of golf, because
I don't mean to say. Let me rephrase that a little bit. Let me back down and dial that back a little bit. But I guess what I mean is I think that in the golfing world, the majority of focus is on the tours, particularly the PGA Tour, which is we all love to watch the tournaments and things like that. And there's a lot of great programs out there, but as my guest indicated earlier, there's now the industry is starting to realize that they need to be focusing on the junior golf, and so there's a lot of different things going on. So I guess what I'm saying is, as the population changes and the baby boomers are rising up, and you've got others that grew up during the Nicholas and Palmer area who are in that age group as well, as there's no polite way of saying it, but as the population ages, and even though golf is a game that can be played virtually at any age, I think it's more important now to re-engage and get some of the youngsters involved, because there are so many things, as I pointed out earlier in my program tonight, there are so many distractions out there and so much competition for everybody's attention that the golf industry is going to have to start doing something. So by having a large, tournament, and like what you're doing, I think is very, very important. So when I ask that question, I'm just saying, do you feel that type of venue or vessel, if you will, is going to be very important for growing the game of golf?
Well, I think it's a part of it. I don't think it's the major part by any means, but I think it's a component that's missing now. What I would say about growing the game is that, first of all, you've got to go young. I cite the example of what General Mills, I think it's General Mills, knock me down if I'm wrong, but General Mills does with Cheerios. Cheerios is a product that you'll see mothers use as maybe the first item a child will eat. And now General Mills is advertising Cheerios as a cholesterol-fighting food. So the idea is that if you get them there when they're young, they become a lifelong customer. And the fact is that golf has been kind of generally, there's been pockets of junior friendly, but generally speaking, golf has been anti-junior. Many clubs resist juniors coming out in tournaments. They think they're slow down play, and there's issues. A lot of golf courses feel like junior golf is always kind of a loss leader and that sort of thing. Those are issues that I think can be solved to some degree. But the point is that the golf industry needs to understand the idea of a lifelong customer. The Brown family has created 3 voracious golf consumers that are going to be playing golf for the rest of their lives, and they're going to be buying equipment and that sort of thing. And the thing is that our kids, as examples, have reached competency. They are highly competent on a golf course. They are completely familiar with golf. They know what to do when they get to a golf course. They can play with anybody, any level of age or gender or whatever. It makes no difference. They understand the rules. They understand how to rake bunkers and take care of the golf course and the etiquette, the whole thing. So they've reached that level of competency, and they are high-value customers to the golf industry. So the question is, how do you replicate that? And to me, you need a full spectrum of things available to the market. But the thing that I think is missing, and I point this out, is that golf has not done a tremendously good job of explaining to parents how much value this sport provides to them as a developmental tool. And I came to junior golf with some very negative biases because I had never shot even par. I was at best maybe a 7 handicap. And so I had no idea that my kids could go and become phenomenal golfers. They've shocked me at level after level that they've broken through. And I had no idea when we started on this path that was going to happen. I think if parents were reassured that if you simply follow a path of development, that your child can get to be a very, very good golfer, and that they will particularly have college scholarship opportunities available to them. In the case of girls right now, there's many scholarships that go wasting for lack of girls available to take them. So,
and this is something too that that I wanted to touch on a little bit. I don't want to detract away from your tournament and that, because I want to give you certainly opportunity to talk a little bit more about it. But I think that this is something that needs to really be lobbied by, and I even said this comment earlier in the show, I hate to use that expression, especially in this political climate, but really I think it's going to be about the only way that it's going to happen is the golf industry as a whole needs to really be more aggressive in getting golf into the schools, back into the schools in some cases, but in more schools, because I think it's a great golf, as we all know, mimics life in so many ways, and I think it is a great developmental tool that parents can use for their children, and with the right, massaging, if you will, golf can be a very, very valuable thing for parents and the school systems, and not just at the collegiate level. So there's a lot of things that kids can learn through golf. Etiquette, as you indicated, with your children, and just, learning a lot of different things that they'll learn out in a golf course that they might not learn elsewhere, and it gets them in an environment that is a positive environment and not, letting them wander in the streets, not knowing what to do. And because, some sports after a certain period of time, they drop interest because they know they're not going to go anywhere with it. Golf is something, it's a game of a lifetime. And where, some sports like football and other sports, there comes a point in time where the aches and pains kick in and you just don't play as much anymore. But golf is something you can play up into your 90s. So it's definitely important. I think the schools need to do that. So, when you're dealing with some of it, I want to get back to your tournament here, and this is kind of where I was leading to, because you are getting such a broad spectrum of kids from all over the world and different cultures and backgrounds and things like that. What is something that you've really noticed? And I want to exclude the U.S. here for a minute because that's a little bit of cheating, but what's sort of the mindset of some of these kids coming from countries, particularly that, golf we don't always hear about as much in their countries. It's maybe on a smaller scale. What is some of the is there a lot of enthusiasm? Is there a different sort of approach to it than what you see here back home?
Well, golf is universal, right? So the same things that are going on here are going on in different countries. I think in some countries it's even more intense in terms of development and expectations maybe. But the fact is that, I give you one story here. When I first started investigating junior golf, my kids started playing and I started looking at tournaments, there was one of the great things about golf is it's very transparent. There's lots of information on the website, on the internet. You can go to look at all different associations. They'll put up scores. They'll put up point leaders. They'll put up all kinds of information that parents can go look at, which is incredibly valuable because it kind of tells you where your kid stands. So when we first started looking at golf, I went on to the Southern California PGA and other different websites here, and there was one particular family. It's a Korean family. I won't name them, but
right.
when I started looking at the amount of tournaments this kid was playing, and having just left baseball and a lot of intensity in that sport, I immediately assumed that this family was completely out of control. They were nuts. There's probably a lot of screaming and yelling was going on, and all the negatives that you associate with sports, because, my gosh, I was finding that they were playing 50, 60 tournaments a year that I could track. And I thought, how can a kid play, at 10 years old, 50 or 60 tournaments? Well, lo and behold, I finally get to meet this family, and with all my negative biases, were suddenly washed away. This was the nicest family. They had a kid that was very focused. They were dealing with him appropriately and going to lots of tournaments. This kid was exhibiting all the great behaviors that you see in junior golf. And to this day, we're still family or friends. And there's a great story out of that inside golf, you do run into these different cultures, and some are more open than others. And sometimes it's hard to break through. The Korean culture might be one of those cultures that you would say would be difficult to break through. Well, one Friday night, after we'd gotten to know this family for maybe a year and a half, we got a call from the father, and he, believe it or not, invited my son to come up and caddy for his son at a U.S. Junior Amateur Qualifier. And the reason was because the caddy they had hired, the adult caddy, the son felt like the adult wouldn't have confidence in him, and he'd gotten to be good friends with my son. And so here was a high-risk platform because they were, these were young kids competing the Korean child was competing to get into the U.S. amateur on a legitimate basis. He had the capability to qualify. He didn't, in fact, it turns out. But they were reaching out to us, to my 11-year-old son to go caddy for him on a 36-hole one-day qualifier. And so, there's just been, I can tell you story after story like that family in other sports, there's sometimes a lot of conflict and that sort of thing. In junior golf, opposite. Parents walk fairways together. They get to be friends. Sons and daughters that maybe not playing golf that were walking with you, they get to be friends. And it's a tremendous environment. I'm not going to tell you it's perfect, but it's in my experience with other sports and that sort of thing. It's been a great opportunity for our family.
Yeah, and that's really the way it should be. That's what golf can do. Sports in general I think is good all the way around. But as I said, golf is a sport that is obviously really meant to be fun, but it's also a way of allowing you to continue on for many, many years. Sports like tennis and baseball and so forth. You can certainly play them in some level, but there comes a point in time when reality sets in, and as I said, the aches and pains come in, and you just can't play at that kind of level where golf you can play, even if you only end up playing 9 holes, you can still get out there and still have that same experience and still, they're trying to break par and so on. But, there's always still going to be a challenge there, but it's something that you can do. And, well, let's break down the tournament a little bit. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about the tournament specifically, the championship, and sort of the components of it. Again, when is it taking place? Where is it going to be? And those that are interested, how do they get involved and register for it? And so let's sort of start the direction there if we can.
Sure. Well, let's just talk about the model and the way the model works, because if you're a once-a-year event, it's a unique model to operate the way we do. And the way we operate is in what I call a quasi-franchise model. And what I mean by that is that we look at each venue as like a franchise location, like a McDonald's unit, let's say. And we can start, we did the first year we had 275 players from 18 countries. We can start relatively small, and what we do is we combine divisions. They play in separate divisions, but those divisions might be playing on the same golf course together. As we grow, as the divisions grow, then we just add golf courses. And a golf course is an increment of 200. So if we have 200 players, we need 1 or maybe 2 golf courses. If we have 400 players, we need 2 or 3 golf courses. And it just multiplies. If we have 1,000 players, we need 5, 6, 7 golf courses, depending on how you want to put it together. Now, each location is like a franchise. So we hire a very highly skilled tournament director to operate that location. We have a contract arrangement with the Professional Golfers Career College in Temecula. They are a professional school designed to educate people that are oftentimes second career, might be kids coming out that would like to go to college, but they want more of a trade school thing where they get a direct shot right into the golf industry. And so they've got these students going to the college, and we give them basically a laboratory for them to put their students in for a week long. So it's like a tournament, it's a direct tournament operations experience. And it gives them the opportunity to put a resume item down that they were helped developing this big junior golf championship. They themselves get to meet these people from around the country and around the world. And so it's a very synergistic relationship with the golf college. I was hoping Jack Gives, who's the assistant to Tim Somerville, might be able to join us tonight, but I wasn't able to reach him today, so he may call in a little later. I'm not sure, but
okay.
So that's one part of the relationship. That gives us we have a tournament director that we put in place last year. For example, Lou and Valerie Scavron were our tournament directors for Tustin Ranch. Lou and Valerie have been running the Valley Junior Golf Association for years and years out in Murrieta. One of their famous clients is Ricky Fowler, and in fact, Lou and Valerie's son, Joe, is currently Ricky Fowler's caddy on tour. So there'd be no doubt that Lou and Valerie would be capable of running a junior golf championship. And so what we do is we then put them in charge of operating Tustin Ranch. We provide all the field. We provide the flags, the banners, the scoreboards, scorecards, all the paraphernalia that you need to run a junior golf championship. And they simply run it with using the staff from the golf college, and then we supplement with some volunteers for rules and other activities and that sort of thing. So that's how we operate the tournament. Now we start out with an opening ceremony event. The idea from the very beginning was to follow the Olympic model. Therefore, this is a recent development that we actually signed a long-term agreement with the Amateur Athletic Union to use the name AAU Junior Olympic Games Golf Championship. The AAU actually owns the right to use the name Junior Olympics inside the United States. The AAU is the oldest amateur athletic organization in continuous existence going back to the mid-1800s. In fact, the AAU used to operate the Olympics until, I forget the exact dates and that sort of thing, but sometime around the 1970s, particularly when TV contracts got to be very large and the Olympics started to grow because of the TV coverage, then they formed the International Olympic Committee, and the main Olympics went into the International Olympic Committee, but they retained the right to the name Junior Olympics. And to that end, the AAU operates a Junior Olympics every summer that travels from each year. It moves to a different city. I think last year it was in Houston. I think it's in Iowa this year. So they use that name. Now, we're unique in that in the Junior Olympic model for the AAU, they were not successful, particularly in getting golf into the Junior Olympics. For one, golf wasn't in the Olympics, but it now is coming. For another thing is that the reality of operating in a golf tournament at the junior level is kind of a building process. It's relationships. It's knowing the pro, the staff, logistically knowing the golf course and what you have to do at each golf course, etc. So for the AAU to move the Junior Olympic golf concept from city to city, not to return for many years maybe, was a challenge they couldn't really address. So they, under our new agreement, they've carved out, I believe we are the only sport in the Junior Olympic Games concept that doesn't move from city to city. So, and the reason they've done that is that, for one, we offer the largest possible platform for them by operating in Southern California. Right. And two, the AAU is very interested in expanding their brand internationally. And so Veritas, through its, eventually will be, I think, my goal is to have 70 to 75 countries participating out of the 250-plus countries that exist. There's probably only 70 to 75 that have, at this point anyway, have realistic junior golf possibilities. So the AAU, through junior golf, gets this exposure around the world. And in families that play junior golf, they might have a swimmer or a wrestler or another sport, and so it gives them a chance to reach those potential clients. So following the Junior Olympic model, I said, hey, we've got to have an opening ceremony. So we couldn't afford to create our own opening ceremony, so we piggyback on a baseball game. So either the Dodgers or Angels each year are operating on the particular Saturday that we are going to be starting our event. And so the first year we were at the Dodger Stadium. Last year we were at Angel Stadium. And this year we'll be back at Angel Stadium on July 19th for an Angels versus Seattle Mariners game. And what we do then is we're able to, because we're a big enough ticket buyer, send the kids onto the field with their flags. The first 2 years and this year, the family members are invited on too. So brothers and sisters that might be traveling, aunts and uncles, coaches, whatever, want to go on the field, because we want to create some critical mass on the field with the flags and that sort of thing. So we had something like last year, maybe 900,000 people that walked on the field prior to the game, and one of the participants gets picked to throw out the first pitch. The Angels also gave us the play ball announcer, and they also gave us an honorary dugout kid, so that one of the kids got to go in the dugout and got an Angels jersey, got autographs and pictures from some of the Angels players and that sort of thing. So that was kind of neat. So we start with that, then we go to the golf, and then at the closing, we're working with Disney Sports. Disney Sports has a very active sports program. Of course, Disney owns ABC and ESPN, et cetera.
Right.
And so they've got and by the way, they have a very close relationship with the Amateur Athletic Union, as it turned out, which is one of the reasons we were able to get this contract put together, because of that relationship. The AAU's headquarters are actually on Disney's property down in Orlando. So they have a very strong relationship together. So the idea is to Disney is interested in helping us with our travel side. They have a travel component that they introduced, because these people come from different countries, et cetera, need some help in that respect. And then naturally some of the kids go into the theme park at the end. So we have a medal award ceremony at Downtown Disney at the AMC Theater Complex that they host for us.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So longer term, I have a vision kind of incorporating this Disney concept for Southern California, where we'd have a Southern California golf day at Disney, where people from all aspects of the golf industry would just think of that day each year of being a day that, hey, that might be the day we go to Disney, or one of the days we go to Disneyland, because we know we're going to see, first of all, these families from around the world are going to be there, and then my friends from San Diego will come up, and we'll know that a lot of people in the golf industry are at Disneyland that day. So we'll see how that works out, but that's one of the visions.
Well, it's definitely, I think, a great idea, and I think that obviously a lot of thought and preparation went into this, in bringing this World Junior, and I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, I can't think of really a better way to get a lot of these youngsters from literally all over the world. This is very similar to what Greg Norman talked about in the World Golf Championships years ago, when he talked about wanting to get golf into a global reach, and I think getting it into the hands of juniors is even more important, because the younger we can start them and get them interested in the game, then it's, as you said, it's going to grow into a lifelong journey, if you will, and there's just so many great things that can come out of golf. So, I mean, I just think this is a fantastic thing. Robert, if people want to get more information, I know you have a website. Do you want to let the folks know how they can get more information, and if they want to participate or be involved in the Veritas World Junior Championship, how can they do that? Sure. The easiest way to get to the website is to Google Veritas Golf. And Veritas is spelled Veritas, golf, obviously number one. The website is www.veritasworldjunior.org. We are in a nonprofit structure with a commitment to take any excess funds that we have available and direct those back into junior golf programs to get more kids involved. So we have, as far as entering the tournament, we do not accept beginners. We are looking for kids that have some level of competency. Right. And what I mean by that is that they need to have some demonstrated tournament experience. Now, that doesn't mean they've got to shoot even par. It depends on age, and it depends on gender. The girls obviously, if you look at their stats, don't shoot as low as the boys generally. But what we're looking for primarily is the fact that they can demonstrate some tournament experience, where they have URL links that they can provide and that sort of thing. So we have some relationships established. We're growing this, but the long-term objective is to have relationships across the United States and around the world, so that we don't actually make any player selections. What we would do in Southern California is just operate the event, and we empower these associations
by giving them the entries into the tournament. And so the associations then would get the additional draw for their association and to grow their association of saying, if you come and participate in our association, then we are the pathway for you to go to the Junior Olympics of golf in Southern California each year. And so this is very empowering. Think about, I like to use this example, would there be a Jamaican bobsled team if there wasn't an Olympics?
Right. Right.
So
that's true.
I believe that the Junior Olympics of golf can actually create golf around the world, because kids will find out about it. They'll find out that, hey, my friend got to go to Southern California, got to go to Disneyland, got to play golf, got some great prizes and a goodie bag and different stuff that we can give away. They had a great experience. They went to the beach. They, had different cultural experience. They made friends. And guess what? That kid that, we're not trying to steal the soccer players of the world necessarily, but maybe that kid that was playing soccer will start thinking about golf as an option. And next thing you know, we'll be growing the game internationally.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that's really important is that we sometimes as Americans, we take for granted what a great place we have. And
right.
I can tell you, I went down to Colombia last November for a qualifier in Colombia. And Colombia is a beautiful country, but, for those people to be able to be thinking about coming to Southern California to compete against other players around the world was incredibly exciting. And so, we have something that really nobody else can offer in the United States here with this opportunity of drawing these players from around the world. And I almost feel like it's our responsibility to create that, because it's such a great resource for people to, use in their development of their child. There's no child that's going to be able to go on to, and develop into a really great player unless they have big stages to play upon. So, and Ted, to give you an indication, I talked about competency and expertise in golf. I'm going to give you some great trivia here. In the 2013 Masters, there were only 2 players that went all 4 rounds without 3-putting. One was Lee Westwood. Why don't you put up a contest to see if anybody on your radio show can call in and come up with the other name? It's a fascinating.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but
that sounds
anyway,
good.
Junior golf expertise is getting to be greater and greater, and I think there's a great opportunity to grow the game in that respect. And the key that I see really is being able to explain to parents what a great story junior golf is for their child, for their long-term development, for their, especially today, with, as you said, you pointed out, with so many different distractions, with video games, et cetera, and obesity is a huge issue. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at the average 18-hole course is a 5-6 mile walk. So you get these kids out playing golf, and they're getting some natural exercise in and that sort of thing, and building their social relationships. When you go to a junior golf tournament, I don't think I really have ever seen during the tournament competition, you never see a kid pull a video game out, on the golf course.
No.
They have them. They might be doing that, as a sideline, but actually out on the golf course, it's a respite from those electronic distractions that they have.
Yeah, and that's really what I was alluding to earlier in the program when I posed the question to the ladies that were on the panel. How do we get this next generation? And obviously I'm not going to go over it again because we already discussed it. But we need to do more things, and I think what you're doing, Robert, is fantastic to really tap into the junior market, especially. And I think that as it continues to grow and become even more successful than what it currently is, I think it's really going to be help to be a game changer. And that's really what I was alluding to earlier when I asked you the question about, do you think what you're doing here is something that is going to help grow the game? Do you think it's going to depend on events such as yours? And I really do to some degree. Obviously, there's a lot of components out there that are going to help golf continue. And golf is certainly not going to fizzle out. And I don't want to, like I said earlier, don't want to sound like an alarmist, but I just, there's a lot of things, and again, stats don't lie, in the golf industry, there needs to be some changes. And I think coming after the junior market aggressively, like yourself and like others that have been on the program here, I think is only going to help the game. And we need to, to get people re-engaged again in life in general, and I think golf is a great way to do it. I think it's a great way to get families engaged. I know, as I've mentioned several times on the program before, about getting more women involved in golf, and I think that's a great way to get some of the youngsters as well, because there's a lot of women, once they get involved, obviously they're in most families the primary caregiver for their children. They can get them involved in some great junior programs and eventually, work their way towards what you're offering here and maybe play even on a more competitive thing. But at the very least, we want to get them engaged in the sport and get them away from some of these other distractions that are really hurting them socially and in other ways as well. But, Robert, I want to thank you. We were winding down here the last minute or two, so I just want to give you another quick opportunity here before we have to close off for the show for the evening, just to give another plug for the tournament and remind everybody how they can get more information if they so choose.
Well, the website's the direct way, the best way to find out more information, and we have an at-large process so that anybody that feels like they'd like to participate can fill out an at-large application on the website. I think I'm more optimistic, Ted, about the future of golf, and particularly on the junior side of it, and I'll tell you why. For one, I'm sure you've heard of the Drive, Chip, and Putt program. There's been a lot of resources put in, a lot of focus in that. And it's an experiment in terms of reaching out to the junior market and pulsing to see what's out there. And they had an overwhelming response last year. They had more than twice as many kids applied, and they were able to, actually allow to participate in the program. This year they grew it. I think the total last year was something like 17,000 participated. This year they've taken it to all 50 states, and they've got something like 50,000 spots available for kids to participate in that. So
that's excellent.
They haven't taken it international yet, and I think that's one of the things I've been discussing with the USGA is maybe getting Veritas established as a qualifier so that the international players that are coming to the U.S. would have an access point to participate in Drive, Chip, and Putt. So that's one thing. The other thing is that there's a documentary out called The Short Game, and it's something that I recommend highly for all parents to watch with their kids. What they'll find is the kids want to watch it over and over again, and it's about the U.S. Kids World Championship in Pinehurst. And you talked about the cultural part of it, and they actually go to the home countries of some of the kids that are participating, and it's phenomenal. It demonstrates clearly how good young players can be, and the social aspect and the fun part of golf. There's some negative aspects in it too, which I know more about the inside of it, and I believe that the actual family that that took a lot of criticism in the event. I know the family personally, and I know they are a very well-adjusted family. They love their kids, and the children are thriving, but it doesn't come out on the screen very well for them, unfortunately. But it's a great movie, and I think it's on Netflix. So I recommend that, too, for a lot of parents. Parents should definitely try and sign your kids up for this Drive, Chip, and Putt program, which is open. The registration is open now. So,
very good.
Anyway,
Robert, I want to thank you.
Those two things, Ted, I think give me a lot of hope, because it's indicating that the golf industry is getting more focused on the junior market and growing the game from the ground up.
Yeah, and that's right. And I don't certainly want anyone to misunderstand me. I mean, I'm not. I don't want to sound like a pessimist in that. I think that there's certainly a lot of great things happening in the golf industry, and I know that the powers that be are diligently working. I just think sometimes, like every facet of business and industry, as time goes on, sometimes they can become a little bit complacent in their thinking, and I think that the more aggressive that they become in the junior market and also in the women's market as well, I think is going to only help the game continue to grow, and I know it's not going anywhere, going away anytime. But it's just that I think that they need to maintain that focus, particularly on the juniors, and get kids at the school levels and young levels involved back in the sport more. I think it's going to be great not only for the economy, but it's also going to be great for families. A component as well for families to get involved. I mean, you're living proof of that with your sons. Obviously, you enjoy playing with them, and it served you very well. And I know that what you're doing to help grow the game is only going to make it even that much better. So, Robert, I want to thank you very much for coming on Golf Talk Live this evening and sharing the Veritas World Junior with us. And I want to wish you much continued success with the program, and please keep us updated here on the program.
Yeah, Ted, hey, listen, a big thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. We're just trying to get the word out to the country and also around the world about this. And the more people become aware of it, obviously, the more interest that we're going to have. So thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. And Robert, we'll touch base in the weeks to come. And what I'll do is I'll get some information from you, and we'll get put up on my website as well, so that people surfing my site can get a backlink to yours and so forth. But we'll talk about that later, and certainly want to help in any way I can to continue to promote it, because I think it's a great project that you've been working on for some time now, and I know it's going to be very, very successful and continue to grow and help this great game. So, Robert, thank you for doing what you do, and keep doing it.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Good night.
All right, good night. Okay, that was my special guest this evening, of course, Robert Brown, the founder of Veritas World Junior. And again, if you want to get more information about what's going on this upcoming July, it's going to be taking place, of course, in Southern California, as Robert had mentioned. But visit his website at www.veritasworldjunior.org, and you can get all the details and specifics. And it is certainly becoming a global brand. And I think that what Robert and his associates are doing is fantastic for the game, and I'm certainly glad to help in any way that I can to support it. So, but anyways, I want to thank you for tuning in and listening to the program tonight, and I want to give a special thank you again to my guest panel, Nicole Weller and Kate Tempesta, for joining on Coach's Corner tonight. Did a great job, ladies. Glad to have you on board. And Brendon, unfortunately, you weren't able to make it tonight, but I'm going to have you back on at a later date. Brendon, of course, Elliott was supposed to join us on the panel tonight. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. But Brendon, don't worry, we'll have you back on at a future date. But I appreciate you for your thoughts anyways. But Nicole Weller and Kate Tempesta, thank you very much for joining on the panel. And, of course, again, thank you, Robert Brown of Veritas World Junior, for stopping by here on Golf Talk Live. And don't forget, as a reminder, next Tuesday, don't forget to join Cindy and I on the Women of Golf at 9 a.m. Eastern Time at www.blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf. I want to thank, of course, all of the listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning into Golf Talk Live each and every week. I certainly have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment for having a number of highly talented coaches and teaching professionals and authors and entrepreneurs that stop by the program each and every week. And through their participation and guest appearances, they have certainly helped to make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. So I want to give a special thank you to those, and also to some of the sponsors, supporters of the show, Mr. Jonathan Laird of South Coast Golf Guide, for all of your continued support. And I appreciate that, and we're going to be hearing a little bit more from Jonathan in the weeks to come, and that about a special project that we're working on here to add some additional content to the program. I want to also, thank you, Mr. Bernie Pinder of Ontic Golf, Peter Doyle of Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland, and of course Nikki and Tiffany Litherland for help spreading the word on the show. Thank you for your support, and of course Meredith Kirk of Meredith Kirk Golf, and of course she's the 2014 Mrs. South Carolina. She's wearing the crown, and she's going to be competing in the Mrs. USA I believe it's in August, and she's also involved with Endless Golf or Myrtle Beach Magazine. So thank you, Meredith, for your continued support of the program. Okay, guys, again, thank you to my guests this evening, and I hope everybody that tuned in has a great weekend, and I will see you back here next Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody, and have a great weekend. Thank you.